What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for January 10th, 2025. This is our second week going live here on the channel with us talking about SmackDown, the second week where they've done the 3-hour format. And quite honestly, I didn't think it worked out too well. What has not worked out, I can't say it hasn't worked out too well, but we've been trying to go live last Thursday for WrestleRant Radio, last Saturday for a SmackDown review, this past Tuesday for hashtag AskGSM, this past Thursday for WrestleRant Radio. Each time I'm taking notes, trust me, I'm trying to figure out what's working and what's not. The layouts this time, the layout worked on hashtag AskGSM for the first hour on Tuesday. For whatever reason, it didn't appear, so we got that fixed. The bitrate quality, for whatever reason, it told me on my end was not high enough while we were streaming. I tried to fix that. The audio quality. Now, when I'm on here by myself, it sounds fine. It still sounds different than when I just use my microphone plugged into my computer. I'm not the most tech-savvy person. When I have my just regular Yeti mic plugged into my laptop, it sounds perfectly fine. But when I plug it into a USB 2.0 so I could use my camera as well, for whatever reason, it sounds like there's a definite difference in audio quality. And when I'm on here by myself, it's okay. But like when I'm talking with Mr. Marceau, it was nothing on his end. But like when we were speaking on Thursday, and I usually call him on the phone, and I have the phone up to my fucking microphone. That's the way I've always done it. For whatever reason, it would only pick up like certain things that he was saying. It would cut in and out. It had nothing to do with him. It was entirely on my end. I could hear him perfectly while we were talking. But when I went back and watched the stream, got a couple comments saying, hey, couldn't really hear Mr. Marceau. Trying to fix that for next week. So if I do have any tech-savvy people watching, either live or on replay, please let me know how I can potentially fix that. As far as, like, I would like to have my microphone plugged directly into my laptop. But the problem is if I do that, I only have one USB port. And I need that for my camera as well. So I might have to do something different. Don't know exactly what that is, but we'll try to figure it out in due time. But today we are talking SmackDown from January 10th, 2025. As I said a few moments ago, it was the second week as part of the 3-hour format. And we were on here last week, and I said, you know what? For 1 week, it was okay. For 1 week, they didn't do too bad. We had 2 title matches last week, 2 title matches this week. Biggest difference, though, was this show really wasn't all that eventful. We did have 2 championship matches, 2 United States championship matches, actually. One for the men, one for the women. A new #1 contender crowned. But I think the most eventful thing that happened on the entire show happened in the first 5 to fucking 10 minutes when Roman Reigns, who was not even on this show, but Paul Heyman, always his surrogate, on the show in his place, saying that Roman Reigns will be participating in this year's 2025 Men's Royal Rumble matchup. That was the biggest thing to come out of the show that had me saying, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. The 2 title matches were fine. The in-ring action on the show was fine. The tag team division got some love, some more screen time. This is not a 3-hour show. I know they just recently expanded to 3 hours as of a week ago, and hopefully it can find its footing in due time. Last week they were kind of able to get away with it just because of the WWE Women's Championship matchup and subsequent title change with the Money in the Bank cash-in. They were kind of able to get away with it last week with the 3-hour format. This week, not so much. It was definitely more of a chore to sit through. And I'll tell you, too, that is coming from someone that did not watch this show live. I watched this on replay after the fact. And even then, it wasn't a great show. I think I got through this show, start to finish, through DVR in 90 minutes. I mean, I can't say that's a bad issue to have, but even watching it, my point is not the fact that I got through it in 90 minutes. I mean, that's a fucking godsend. But the fact that I was able to get through it in 90 minutes and I was still fairly bored on the whole, and I mean, obviously we're reviewing the show, we're breaking the entire thing down, you would think there would be more to talk about. We are breaking down each match and segment and whatnot, but there really wasn't. Like I said, the most notable thing that happened on the entire show was the opening segment. And it wasn't even like anything that happened in the opening segment that subsequently set up the tag team main event with Cody Rhodes and Jimmy Uso versus Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. Don't call them the Bloodline. They're not the Bloodline. I know I have that in the thumbnail. It's not clickbait, but they're technically not the Bloodline anymore. Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga were not introduced or referred to as the Bloodline. I know when Roman Reigns beat Solo on Monday, he got the Ula Fala back. That's great. But they were also made clear on this show that he also does not have the bloodline anymore to Solo Sikoa. He's the man without a group. He's the man without an Ula Fala. And as of next week, he might be a man without any followers. We'll find out next week on SmackDown. Solo Sikoa was not on this show, which is why I did not say in the thumbnail, the title, whatever, that Solo Sikoa is officially gone from the Bloodline. They're making you wait a week. They don't want to give everything away in 1 week with Roman Reigns beating Solo and then having his week go from bad to worse by then having him get booted from the group, 2 days later, or rather, I guess 3 or 4 days later on SmackDown. I guess it would be 4 days later from Monday to Friday. So they didn't do that. They're making you wait until next week, which I think is cool. But that really is, to answer my own question here right off the bat, I probably should wait on this, but I'll just tell you right away because I'm just going to say what we're all thinking here. And I'll check the chat in a second, by the way. I'm strictly in OBS for a second, the back end of my streaming software here. The answer to that question is yes. Solo Sikoa should absolutely be booted from the Bloodline as of next week. There is not a fucking doubt in my mind that next week on SmackDown, he needs to be kicked out by Tama Tonga, and I almost said Tonga Loa, Jacob Fatu. With Jacob Fatu either taking like the leader role or something along those lines. They need to do something where he takes center stage over Solo. I don't know if that means turning Solo Sikoa babyface. It feels like SmackDown has a plethora of babyfaces. Even after turning Kevin Owens, they still have LA Knight, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, possibly Solo Sikoa, among others in the mid card as well. They need stronger heels on both SmackDown and on Raw. I mean, I guess they have Braun Strowman too. They just brought him over. But that's the question they need to answer. Where are they going with this? Is Solo Sikoa versus Jacob Fatu the WrestleMania match? It very well might be. Solo Sikoa, they did announce, will be back next week. So, I mean, it's possible they drag it out, but I would have to think they're going to answer that question or at least give us a better indication of what the future for Solo Sikoa is starting next week on SmackDown. Is he Bloodline bound or is he out of the Bloodline? But how the fuck can he stay in the Bloodline? The guy loses every match that matters. I sat here, I don't know what stream it was, all the days, blend together. But I had said, as other people have said as well, he even said himself a year ago, right after WrestleMania, losing his consequences. Roman Reigns, a man that was not pinned one-on-one for 5 fucking years, by the way. Solo Sikoa gets pinned in every match that he has. He got beat on Monday in the Tribal Combat match with Roman Reigns. He got beat, when was it? At War Games. He got pinned in, you had fucking Tonga Loa in that match, and you had Solo Sikoa get pinned, which made sense for the story. But don't get it twisted, though. It was Solo Sikoa was the one that got pinned. He also got pinned in that tag team match against Roman and Cody at Bad Blood. He got pinned in that rematch with Cody Rhodes on SmackDown inside of a steel cage for the WWE Championship. He also got pinned at SummerSlam. Should I go on? I mean, the guy has lost a lot of matches in the last 6 months alone. How can you continue on to them, A, as a main eventer, and B, as a threat to anyone, unless you kick him out of the Bloodline? How is he a fucking... I mean, he's not a tribal chief. He lost that, proverbial title, I guess, on Monday's Raw to Roman Reigns. But he can't be taken seriously, so just something to keep in mind there. Checking on the chat. We do got a couple people in the chat. Richie, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Micah said, are we live? Yes, we are live. Richie said, the king has returned. Richie said, Richie's perfect with the fucking technology stuff. He had said, you may have to get a USB hub for your laptop, basically something that gets to plug into a singular USB port, which then gives you 4 extra slots or more depending on which hub you purchase. So that would be a USB 3.0, right? Because I think I definitely, well, I don't think I know. It's a USB 2.0 that I have. So a USB 3.0 might be what I need. That's what I was thinking, like right before I went live. That's what I was kind of experimenting with to see what would work better. Because the audio quality now is fine, but it could be better. Like, I mean, it's a fucking regular USB mic, but the quality is typically better when I only use this and not the camera. But when I use both, because I only have one port, I've had this USB 2.0 thing forever, but I'm only now realizing the audio quality is not significantly, but like noticeably decreased when I have multiple things plugged in. He also said, I can't recall having much audio issues on my Yeti when I used to edit on Mac, but I used to record the audio on a separate program while I recorded video on another. I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, I'm using the audio on the back end through a different stream. I'm also recording it simultaneously currently on Audacity. I'm just doing that as a backup. I use that audio for like the audio version of this show that I put up on the website and stuff. But yeah, but even then though, that's the thing, even when I use the audio separately from Audacity, it also sounds like this. That's the weird thing. So that's how I know it's not a streaming software issue. It's my USB thing, because I did try, like, right before I went live here, recording on the USB 2.0 and then directly into the laptop, and there was a difference. So I don't know, I definitely got to get a different USB thing. And it doesn't really matter for now, but it does matter when I have calls and stuff on the phone. Micah with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it. He said, who do you think should be the one to beat Tiffany Stratton for the Women's WWE Championship? I think Roxanne is an underdog babyface. That's the thing. Like, I thought it coming out of last week, Tiffany Stratton, I mean, anyone's going to pop for a fucking Money in the Bank cash in. Akira Tozawa could fucking win the Money in the Bank ladder match and subsequently cash in and get a massive reaction because it's a Money in the Bank cash in. But I thought they might stick with her as a babyface. Now, granted, she did cost Naomi the championship last week against Nia Jax. So I mean, that exactly wasn't exactly a babyface move. But it looks like, based on what she said last night, she said that Nia, rather, was not bullying her. She merely was using Nia and had this plan from the start to kind of befriend herself to Nia and lull her into a false sense of security. So it came to a bigger surprise when she cashed in on her. The only difference is that Tiffany has teased, whether she did it intentionally or not, in character or not, she teased cashing in on Nia on countless opportunities. So how is that befriending herself to Nia when Nia was always on edge anyway that Tiffany could cash in? That doesn't really make sense, but regardless, it looks like Tiffany might be a heel for the foreseeable future. I would like to see her as a babyface for a couple reasons. One, I know she works better as a heel, but one, she's already over as a babyface. People were already feeling sympathy for Tiffany. So that may have just been a swerve, obviously, based on what we saw last week, where she's, you're thinking she might go babyface, but then she actually stays heel. That's fine, but it brings me to my second point. Charlotte Flair is on her way back, and she is most likely on her way back to SmackDown. If Becky Lynch is coming back, she's going to Raw. Charlotte's on SmackDown. That just makes the most sense. Charlotte and Tiffany, to me, is the WrestleMania match. I may have said that last week here on the stream. I think that's the match you could do at WrestleMania. And if you do that match, though, I just think it makes more sense to have Tiffany as the babyface and Charlotte as the heel, even if it leads to what we all think it's going to lead to, and that's Charlotte beating Tiffany for the championship. Who do I think should beat Tiffany? Roxanne would be cool. The problem with with Roxanne, that's a whole other separate conversation. I don't know if you bring her up as a babyface. You probably should. Because honestly, I don't think enough people watch NXT or pay attention to NXT. Because, like, when they bring people up from NXT with the same character they're doing in NXT, a lot of the times it works. But a lot of the times it doesn't work because people haven't seen their full character arc. So, like, for example, I love Cameron Grimes. When they brought him up from NXT, I mean, some people watch NXT, some people pay attention. Obviously, it's not like no one watches NXT that also watches Raw and SmackDown. But, like, his whole character arc in NXT, you can't repeat the same character arc, but it's not the same NXT as 8 to 10 years ago when people were also watching NXT, had that character arc built in, and that was what got them over. Bo Dallas being a prime example. Bo Dallas was a great fucking heel in NXT. I know we're going back to like 2014 here, but he was a great fucking heel in NXT. And then when he got called up to the main roster, it just didn't really work because he was doing all the Bo Leaf shit, and everyone's like, what the fuck is this? Because they weren't watching NXT. Whereas you kind of had to be there. It was one of those things where you had to be there from the beginning to see him as the cheesy baby face, see people turn on him. And that was when he then became this great obnoxious heel. And I feel like with Roxanne, she's in a similar spot where if she comes up as a heel, she's great either way. Obviously, she can let her matches do the talking for her. But I feel like she's more of a natural babyface. And for as good of a heel as she's been this year, in my opinion, you kind of need that character evolution first, where we see her as a babyface, and then she becomes this obsessed heel. If you don't really know the backstory, excuse me, I guess you can introduce her in that way with a video package, but it's just not the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, Roxanne beating Tiffany might make sense. It's probably going to be Charlotte. I mean, let's be honest. It's probably going to be Charlotte. Micah says, Solo versus Jacob Fatu at WrestleMania. I would do it for the United States Championship. Not a bad idea. Shinsuke's the current champion. Are you saying that because of what we saw last night? Because they've kind of been involved with LA Knight? I mean, that's possible. I think it'd be lame for LA Knight to get the belt back and then immediately lose it to Solo or Jacob. And then what does LA Knight do at Mania after being in not a big match, but a notable match with AJ Styles last year? What do you do with LA Knight? I don't think Solo and Jacob needs the U.S. Championship, to be honest. I think that match, not that it sells itself as a fucking main event, but I feel like there's enough story there where you don't need a championship on the line. Certainly not a fucking Tribal Chief Championship. Thankfully, they did not go forward with that idea. They did not go forward in that direction. That would have sucked. Yeah, I think Jacob and Solo is perfectly fine as a regular undercard match, non-title. Use that championship for something else. Keep LA Knight in that mix, because otherwise I'm not really sure what you do with him. He also mentioned you can't, when you lose matches, Solo said win and losses matter. Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said. They got to stay. He said that multiple times, too. He even said it, and this resurfaced on social media this past week. He even told Tama Tonga in September that if Roman Reigns were to get the Ula Fala back, we must acknowledge him. He did not acknowledge him on Monday night. Did he not say that on SmackDown last week? I feel like he said if Roman were to win, you and I both, Paul, will have to acknowledge him. Paul obviously did. Unequivocally acknowledged Roman Reigns. But what about Solo Sikoa? He might have to go crawling back to Roman Reigns. He might have to go crawling back to the OG bloodline. I'm not exactly sure. So I guess we'll find out. Richie said, despite Solo wanting to become Tribal Chief, I'm happy WWE didn't quite mimic Roman's booking for Solo. Otherwise, it would have been a super cheap knockoff. However, those losses do not do him favors. Yeah, no, obviously, I don't know if anyone's going to be the next Roman Reigns, but it certainly ain't fucking Solo Sikoa, who I like. I've always liked Solo Sikoa, dating back to NXT. He's just not that guy, at least not right now. So, you can't repeat that booking. You also mentioned, Richie, unless Zilla Fatu is wrapping up on the Indies, I don't know where Solo goes from here. I think the fans would rather cheer for Jacob and Tama rather than Solo. Can't see him going straight to face. I just feel like that would be weird. Yeah, I mean, say what you will about Solo, but he's been getting very good heat now for months. I feel like just to turn him babyface, just because he's a man without a family, makes him look like a fucking loser. Like, I feel like no one would cheer for him, and he's also on his own. Unless you want to write him off indefinitely, that's not really what I would do. As far as they turn on him and then they turn him face. I don't know. I feel like it would make more sense for Jacob and Tama could get over more as a babyface group. But then again, they were on their own last night and they were acting like heels, beating up Cody and Jimmy and LA Knight. So I don't know what they're doing. Richie also said, back to the audio. It sounds silly, but check system preferences and make sure the Yeti mic is selected by default. Same for Audacity. Try QuickTime to record / test audio and see if that's better. Also, check your input settings to check the audio. To check your audio levels on your mic if you haven't already. Sometimes small things like that end up being the biggest issues happening to me when I switch to PC. That's what I thought too. And then I checked it. On Audacity, it definitely says that it's recording on Yeti. That's the weird thing. Like, I plugged the mic straight into the laptop, and it said Yeti mic. I said, okay. And then I tried the USB port thing where I put it into the port, and I plugged the mic into that. And again, I refreshed the audio devices and whatever, and it said it was still the Blue Yeti mic. I refreshed the audio devices to make sure, because at one point it went through the camera, which obviously is awful quality. It's not great quality at all. So I made sure it was through the Yeti mic, and there was a definite difference. I had it like a side-by-side between recording on the computer with the mic and then recording on with the same mic through a USB port, and there was a difference. So yeah, I will try it through OBS. I'll give it a shot there. But on Audacity, it's weird. It does say it's the same thing, but through the USB device, for whatever reason, it's different quality. I'll finish these super chat, not the super chats. I'll finish these chat comments, and then we'll go back to the SmackDown review in a moment. Then I'll infrequently pop in after each segment or whatever. Nick said, just popping in to say hi. We haven't watched SmackDown yet. Nick, thank you for checking in, my friend. I appreciate it. Nick is great. Enjoy SmackDown. I'm curious what you think. I did not think it was an overly eventful show. I thought last week's show was better. I thought last week's show was pretty good, especially specifically the second half. I thought it was a pretty good show. This show, not so much. The best part about watching it on a replay, whether it's later in the night or the next day, you can skip through all the bullshit. You guys have no idea how much time I fucking save with all of these wrestling shows, by the way. Most of them I watch live just because I have to. But some of the times when I don't have to watch them live, the best part about it is when I can skip through all the bullshit, all the commercials, all the video packages, all the replays, the entrances, unless I really want to watch it. I mean, I don't skip through matches and shit that actually matters and that I have to talk about, but shit that does not matter, I do not watch. And it honestly saves me like an hour and a half each show. So if you add that all up, it saves me hours every single week on these wrestling shows. I mean, I like watching these shows live, but like Raw, I watched live on Monday because it was a big show. I'll probably watch Raw live on Monday this week because it's also shaping up to be a big show. But SmackDown, now that it's a 3-hour show, in an update from last week, I think Ahmed was in the chat last week and said this, and other people have said this as well. Triple H did confirm SmackDown is not staying 3 hours. Now, he said it's only a temporary move, but at the same time, why would they go 3 hours in the first place? It's meant to be a test. So if it works well, which I don't really see it going that way, not to be negative, but well, what is the point of SmackDown being 3 hours? I can't imagine it would lead to an increase in ratings. If anything, the ratings would go down just because there's longer time, there's more of a drop off. You're bound to get a bigger rating for a shorter show. An hour SmackDown would be great. That's not happening. But a 2-hour SmackDown would be ideal. Let's go back to that. It might be until June, though. The next 5 months are going to feel like a fucking decade. That's the problem. It's only temporary, apparently. I would love if they cut the cord on this whole, pulled the plug in this whole 3-hour bullshit a lot sooner than June. But it doesn't look like they will. Richie also said I think a roster trade for LA Knight could do him some favors. He seems to be floundering on SmackDown at the moment, which is unfortunate. I'll get back to LA Knight when I talk about the United States Championship match. Michael also said on that same note, LA Knight has dropped down since 2022, 2023. His star power has fallen, and I think everyone shouldn't be okay or on WrestleMania, I think is what you meant to say, just the big matches. He will go crawling back to Roman Reigns. I might do the same thing, or I catch the highlights on YouTube. Those commercials are brutal. You know what's more brutal than the SmackDown commercials or the Raw commercials? Like, I watched the commercials on Netflix the other day. We'll go back to the SmackDown review now after I mention this. But you know what's worse? You know which fucking platform, at least for me, because for any of these streaming services, and I have not every single one, but I have like the important ones. I'm a big Disney Marvel fan, so I have Disney Plus. Netflix, obviously. I mean, I had Netflix anyway, but especially now for Raw. Max, all this shit. Amazon. I'm a fucking Amazon Prime guy, so I have the Prime Video too. You know what service has the worst commercials? Disney Plus. Disney Plus, which I love. I know a lot of people shit on Disney Plus. It's a kids service. That's kids movies. Well, guess what? Like we established the other day, I'm a kid. I'm a child. I'm a grown child here. Okay. I love the Marvel stuff. I love the Disney stuff. I love the Star Wars stuff. So Disney Plus is my shit. But if I go back and watch a show, doesn't matter if it's new or old, some of the older shows, like we talked about Lilo and Stitch the other week, if I go back and watch an old Lilo and Stitch episode, nowadays there's no commercials. I have the ad-supported version. Maybe I'm the fucking idiot for not getting the ad-free version. But on the ad version for all of these services, Disney Plus has the worst commercials of all time. They will have at least 3 to 4 breaks. If it's a new show, forget about it. If it's a new show like Skeleton Crew or something like that, it'll have like 5 breaks. But the problem is, and I checked with Netflix because I'm not really like on Netflix all that much aside from like Raw and shit. With Netflix, I tried watching an old Raw. I didn't get a commercial to start. There might have been one commercial in the entire thing for a 2-hour old Raw. I mean, I guess it's an old Raw, so it might be different. One commercial break, it was 15 seconds. And that's even with the newer shit. As Squid Games was the same thing. I watched Squid Games, whatever the fuck it's called. Season 2. Good season, by the way. The commercials were almost non-existent. 15 seconds was it. Maybe 2 15-second commercial breaks for like a 45, 60-minute episode. But then I watched something on Disney Plus, like a 30-minute episode of like Skeleton Crew, which again is a newer show, but like even an older show that came out a couple of years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. They'll have fucking 4 or 5 commercial breaks, and they'll all be a minute and a half. One is enough for me to go piss, but the rest of them are like, why the fuck? I don't need 5 minute and a half commercials. You know, actually, even worse than Disney Plus, Peacock. Peacock commercials are awful. Awful. Like during the pay-per-views, we have them after every match, which is obviously normal. I'll get off my soapbox in a second. I'll go back to SmackDown, I promise. This is what happened when you go live. I just go off on random tangents. It's called the WrestleRant for a reason. I guess streaming service rant is also applicable here, but I was trying to watch Peacock. We were watching the Harry Potter movies for the last couple months, and we finished them. But we finished it, and sometimes with Peacock, they'll give you like 3-minute commercials to start. They'll say like, oh, if you watch these messages, you won't have any commercials for the rest of the movie. Like, okay, whatever. Then you can go grab a snack, go piss, whatever, and those 3 minutes are up, and it's simple. But we watched the Harry Potter movie, and I had to go back because we missed the ending. So we went back the next day, and I didn't pause the movie at that like ending part. It just like said that I watched the whole thing, so I had to go back and not rewatch the movie, but fast forward to the part that we left off on. So I got 3 minutes of commercials, at least, maybe four. I think it was 3 minutes to start the movie. And I'm like, okay, that's fucking stupid, but whatever. And then I fast forward to the end of the movie, like the last 5 minutes of the final movie. And then I had to watch another 3 minutes of fucking commercials. Like, what is this? Like, I thought I was getting 3 minutes to watch for the whole thing, and I was only watching like five. I literally spent more time watching the commercials than I did the movie itself because we had to rewatch the ending. How dumb is that? Like, that's just ridiculous. And that is why I prefer watching shit. I mean, I have physical media too, so I prefer that sort of stuff. The commercials are just out of hand. I think Peacock, I take back what I say about Disney Plus. I think Peacock's worse. The commercials on Peacock are awful, which is why if I go back and review or watch any old content from WWE, honestly, at this point, I'm using Netflix. It's not even available here in the US, but there is such thing as a VPN. I might have to start using that because the commercials on Netflix are way better than the ones on Peacock. And you're paying less, I believe, for Netflix for like the ad supported plan than you are for Peacock. I think Peacock it might be $8 or $9 for like the lowest tier. For Netflix, it's like $7. It makes no fucking sense. Anyway, the opening segment on SmackDown, I'll go back to the chat in a little bit. I know we're like almost 30 minutes in here and we're just getting to the opening segment. There really isn't a whole lot to talk about with this show, so I'm sure we'll get through it fairly quickly here. But Cody Rhodes was out there to interrupt Paul Heyman. And Paul gave Cody his flowers, and he said that Roman Reigns is coming back for that championship that he lost to Cody Rhodes last year at WrestleMania. He's done with the Bloodline bullshit. And they kind of mentioned throughout the show, like I mentioned earlier, Solo Sikoa doesn't have the rights anymore, I guess you could say, to the Bloodline name. So when Jacob and Tama came out here and in the main event later on, they didn't refer to them as the Bloodline. They came out as Jacob, Fatu, and Tama Tonga. And I guess they can't continue to use that name even on their own without Solo because Roman technically has the rights. So I don't know if Roman's going to have his own bloodline again or the bloodline name is just dead. That might have been the end of the bloodline storyline on Monday night. I can't imagine it is. Like they might still do bloodline stuff without calling them the bloodline. I don't know. I thought that was worth mentioning though. So anyway, he said his next step, Roman Reigns is getting back the championship that he lost to Cody Rhodes last year at WrestleMania. So Roman did not show up to work again. He has not been on SmackDown in person in over a month and a half since the SmackDown right before Survivor Series in late November. And I don't think he's going to show up on SmackDown again for a while. I think the next time he was advertised anyway was that Raw, I think right before the Rumble. Because he said on Raw, oh, like, Heyman was like, when do you want to have your acknowledgement ceremony? He said, January 27th. And then they showed a 2K25 logo. So they'll probably tie something in there with 2K25, I would imagine, with just the way they filmed that segment. But that's a Monday. It's not a Friday. So he could be on SmackDown that week because SmackDown for the first time, I think maybe not ever, but for the first time in a very long time, SmackDown is in the same city as the Rumble. And I've been to the Rumble the last couple of years, and it would not be in the same city, which made no sense to me. Like they would do that for Mania and sometimes SummerSlam, but the Rumble they did not do that. It would be in a completely different town or city on Friday. Then they would be in whatever the host city it was for the Rumble on Saturday. Thankfully, they're not doing that this year. It's the same city, so Roman might be on SmackDown that same week. He might finally show up to work on a Friday for once. But we did find out here Roman Reigns will indeed be in the Men's Royal Rumble match. So that will mark his first Rumble since 2020. So 5 years. For the first time in 5 years, Roman Reigns will be ready to Rumble. He's not going to win, but that adds him to a list of names. Really, only one name, John Cena. And you can make your case for like a Rollins or a Punk. I still think, I know what Punk said on Monday after he beat um, what am I talking about? CM Punk beating Seth Rollins in the main event of Raw on Monday. I know what he said about, oh, I'm coming for you, Cody. I'm coming for you, Gunther. Why wouldn't he just challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship? Like, who is Gunther going to face? Gunther has not been on Raw in weeks. But if there's anyone that's worthy of a title shot on Raw, it would certainly be CM Punk. I don't know, so just keep that in mind. I don't even think CM Punk should have to go through the Rumble. CM Punk winning the Rumble, not a bad move in my opinion, but I just feel like it would make more sense if he just challenged for the championship outright, because who else would you have challenge Gunther on that show? The answer could be no one. He doesn't have to defend on that show, but what else are you going to do with Gunther in the meantime? Nothing? He's done nothing in the last week, month, since Saturday night's main event, which was a month ago this past weekend, or this weekend. 4 weeks ago today was the last time Gunther, I think, appeared on a WWE television show in person. So I don't know. Anyway, Roman Reigns is in the Rumble. He will not win, but that does, add a lot of star power to that Rumble matchup, and I look forward to that. So him and Cena are both in there. And then Jimmy Uso came out as well to make the save because I forgot what the order of events here was, but Jacob Fatu came out. I thought I wrote a fucking Tongaloa in my notes. I did not. It was Tama Tonga. Tongaloa is not back that quickly. He's not Super Cena here, at least not in that respect, I guess. But they came out here to attack Jimmy Uso and Cody Rhodes. They were countering or trying to corner Cody Rhodes. Because Cody also went off the brawl with Kevin Owens, who also interrupted Cody. That's what happened. Cody went off the brawl with Cody, and then the Bloodline went after Paul Heyman. Jimmy Uso made the save. He got his ass kicked. Cody made the save. So he was busy with Kevin Owens, and he was also busy with the pseudo Bloodline. They're not really the Bloodline anymore, but I'm probably going to call them that anyway, just because that's what we've always known them to be. So that set up the tag team main event for the night with Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga taking on Cody Rhodes and Jimmy Uso. This was, a fine segment. I thought it was well done. It set up the main event. It furthered the feud between Kevin Owens and Cody. Kevin Owens had the best comment of the entire night. He goes, "Why were you out there on Raw shaking hands with The Rock? Playing kissy boo-boo with The Rock?" That's a great question. I don't know. Kevin Owens is indeed right. It said it on a shirt. Kevin was right. I wish my name was Kevin. That would be a great shirt. I don't know if it says Kevin Owens. I think it says Kevin is right. If your name's Kevin, well, that's a great shirt for you. To walk around in public having a shirt that says Kevin is right. But Kevin Owens was indeed accurate when he said that, why the fuck were you out there shaking The Rock's hand? It made no sense. We went on a whole rant about it on Tuesday's hashtag AskGSM, as well as on Thursday here on the stream, so I won't do it again here. But it made no sense. The first match on the show for the Women's United States Championship, Chelsea Green beating Michin to retain the title. Now, here's the weird thing. So, we knew they were headed for a rematch between these two, which honestly, even as a week or two ago, I really don't care about. I like Chelsea Green. I thought she was a perfect fit for that first Women's United States Championship, whatever. I like Michin a lot. I think she had a great last year. She really broke out. She's getting a ton of TV time. She's still not yet super over, but, they're trying. She's at least on the show every single week. They're trying with her. I'll give them that. But they didn't announce this match in advance. They announced LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura in advance. It feels like to me they were putting together the lineup of what they were doing with SmackDown because all eyes were on Raw on Monday. That was the case last week with SmackDown, which had the cash in, but even prior to that show, nothing was advertised. It still ended up being a good show, but nothing was advertised. They certainly did not advertise that. They advertised Nia and Naomi. Actually, that's not entirely accurate. But Motor City Machine Guns and DIY for the tag team titles, they did not advertise. They did not advertise this match. So they advertised Knight and Nakamura, but not this match. The original rumor per WrestleVotes was that they would have their rematch at the same place where they had their last match, which would be Saturday night's main event, which is coming up in 2 weeks. As of now, by the way, no match is set up for that show. I'm sure they'll announce matches next week. Please do not wait until the day before. Please. I know all eyes are on the Royal Rumble right now and whatnot, but this is why they should not have done another one of those installments of Saturday night's main event. If they can't make them feel important, then don't do them. That first one was great. I was at that first one. I'm biased, but I thought it was a fun show. I honestly don't know what matches they could do on that show. Maybe DIY and Motor City Machine Guns again. The Profits were not on the show, so I would say a triple threat, but where the fuck are they? They weren't. They were attacked, but they came back. I honestly have no idea what's going on with the Profits. It's a very weird situation. Something feels like it's going on there, because why else would they not be on the show right now if they're not hurt in storyline or in real life? And maybe they are hurt in real life or something's going on. I have no idea. But back to Green and Michin. They had a decent match. This was no different than their other installments in their lengthy feud dating back to late last year. It was a good match, but Chelsea Green again cheated the win, and Michin was again distracted by Piper Niven. This was no different than the finish that they did a month ago at Saturday night's main event. And I'm sure the feud will continue. But why? The question is, but why? And I feel like that was the question with a lot of stuff that we saw on the show. But why? What purpose does this serve? This is not meaningful. They could have just waited to do this match until the next Saturday night's main event, which they will probably run it back on that show anyway because they need matches for that show. But then why do this match here? The finish sucked. It was better than a DQ. Honestly, they probably would have done a DQ if they were not going to do a DQ in their other championship match on the show. They protected Michin in defeat, but Michin even said in the WWE.com exclusive video, it probably ended up on social media as well, she said, "I'm not done with Chelsea and Piper." Then what was the point of this match? Because she's just going to lose again. And if she doesn't, then you're cutting Green's reign short at like a month. So it's not really a win-win situation. They have women on SmackDown. That's the worst part. You have people on SmackDown that Chelsea Green could be working with. Michin can move on and do something else. Why does it have to be this feud? It's not like their matches are fucking like... It's not even like Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, who had amazing chemistry and they were having great matches, and we got like 7 or 8 of those matches. And I didn't mind because they were so great. This isn't the same thing. Their matches are good. They're fine. They're decent. They're average outings. But there's no reason to run this back fucking 5 times, especially when they had their best match together, the dumpster match, months ago, and I can't imagine anything else they'll do will top that. Their next match definitely needs a stipulation, but if they have yet another match and Michin yet again gets distracted by Piper and Chelsea yet again cheats to win, then what are we even doing here? It's like we're watching the same show on repeat week after week. I'll check up in the comments here real quick. Richie said, I was so thrown off by SmackDown last night, seeing SmackDown not end at 10, then I remembered the show is 3 hours. I know. He said, I can only hear at BK so many times. Goddamn. That commercial at this point lives rent-free in my head. That commercial, they play that way too many fucking times. Richie also says, I didn't even know Disney Plus had commercials. I haven't used it in a while. Now I don't know if I want to. Yeah, they just have way too many. It's not even the fact they have commercials. Every service now has commercials. Unfortunately, it's just the reality that we live in. At that point, just bring back cable, but whatever. I get it, but it's just that the commercials are too long. They're just too long. At least on TV, you know when it's coming. TV shows have always had commercials. We grew up with commercials on TV. But you know when they're coming. It is what it is. I don't even really complain about that with Raw and SmackDown. I mean, those shows are 3 hours now, so you're going to get a lot more commercials. With a regular 2-hour show or a half-hour show or an hour-long show, you know when the commercials are coming. That doesn't really bother me. But on a streaming service, when they can control that shit and they make it 90 seconds, that's just stupid. It sounds like a dumb thing to complain about, but there's just too many commercials. And then Micah also said, honestly, I like Disney Plus too, but I was watching Holes last night. Great movie, Shia LaBeouf. And that movie is still so good even 20 years later. You know, they had a sequel book. I don't know if they ever made the sequel into a movie, but they made it into a book. And I read it in like 5th grade, I think. It was good. I forgot what it was called. It focused on one of the characters. I feel like it was the bigger kid from the first book/movie. And it was good. It was a nice follow-up to the first book, movie, whatever. And I enjoyed it. I haven't read it since. That was 20 years ago. But, yeah, that movie is... I mean, that movie would replay constantly on Disney Channel. Constantly. I have seen that movie so many fucking times. But it's a good movie. And Richie also said, streaming now has become what it used to be. What was... It was supposed to kill cable. It's lived long enough to see itself become the villain. And yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's just ridiculous. So also on SmackDown, we got Los Garza versus Pretty Deadly. So we saw a segment backstage on SmackDown with Nick Aldis. We saw Los Garza. We saw Pretty Deadly. DIY was not back there. Who was it? Oh, Motor City Machine Guns and 8-Town Down Under. So a bunch of mid-card SmackDown tag teams. And he said, I want you guys to prove yourself to me. And maybe if you can win your respective matches tonight, and then we'll see who can, get the next shot at the WWE Tag Team titles. Because, I mean, they're trying to involve... This was funny, though. I think 8-Town Down Under took the spot of the Profits. Because why the fuck were they in this segment? Why are they even still a thing? Like, what... Again, I ask you, what are we doing here? I'm all for long-term booking, but this split with Theory and Waller has been going on for almost a year now. And there has been no progression. I'm at the point where I don't care. And if you were going to keep them as a team, that's fine. I like them as a team. But then don't tease tension for a fucking year. Either tease tension or don't tease tension. They never win anyway. They haven't won a match in months, I don't think. So what's the point? They lost in NXT. They've lost on SmackDown. They've lost on Raw. They lose on pay-per-view. They never win anything. So why are they still together? Why is there no advancement of that story? SmackDown is 3 hours. So you can't even say anymore, well, there's not enough TV time. No, they have more than enough TV time to tell that story. They just don't want to. Triple H doesn't want to. So I don't know what's going on with the Profits. They were not on the show again. Because remember, they were attacked a month ago or several weeks ago. But then they came back. And Apollo Crews told them because they thought they were on the show. They beat Los Garza like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. And because Pretty Deadly said, oh, yeah, it was Los Garza that attacked the Profits. It was clear that it was fucking DIY from day one. As The Rock would say from 2011 in his promo, a blind Stevie Wonder in his mother's basement could see that coming, but they still thought it was Los Garza. Okay, whatever. So they did that match. They beat Los Garza, and then Apollo Crews shows up. I don't know why he was withholding information for so long, but then he said, "Oh yeah, it was actually DIY that attacked you." That was 2 weeks ago. They weren't on last week. They weren't on this week. Where the fuck are they? Did they just take that information and go home? We're like, oh, okay, whatever. They were pretty quick to go after Los Garza. There's something either they're sick, one of them's sick, or they got shit going on, or one of them's hurt. I mean, it's just very weird how they dropped that. I'm sure they'll go back to it, but it was very weird that there's been no advancement on that front at all. So we got these two tag team matches out of that backstage segment. Los Garza and Pretty Deadly was fine. It was a nice match. The only issue is that both teams are heels, so the crowd didn't really care. Unless they're turning Los Garza and Legado del Fantasma, I don't really. I mean, again, I'm all for these teams getting more television time because that's what the 3 hours are about. But it was clear this match only existed, and it was only as long as it was because the show is 3 hours. And when you have to stretch things when people are not over and people do not care, then it's a tough spot to be in because these people don't give a shit about either of these teams. So I like the match. Los Garza, it was a nice, well-wrestled match, and I like Los Garza. It took Santos Escobar, Elektra Lopez, and I think a ref bump or whatever it was for these guys to beat Pretty Deadly, which is pretty odd considering it's pretty fucking deadly. But beyond that, it was fine. I just don't really see why anyone would care about this match when no one cares about either of these teams, really. Like, I like these teams, but there's no real reason to care. It's probably Los Garza's win, their first win in months. I think the last team they may have beaten was Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin, and that guy's not even employed by the company anymore. That's how long ago that match was. So, I don't know. It was a match that existed, I suppose. I will mention this, two things. I forgot to mention one of these things earlier, and I'll mention this one thing now. With Los Garza, they did come out to new music. I don't think it was new music, though. I feel like I've been through this before where they came out to new music, and then I was like, are you fucking kidding me? They changed these guys' music. But I think they only came out to new music because I think it's supposed to be their music, the Los Garza music. I think the Legado music, Santos music, is still the group's music. Their theme song is still the same. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe Santos comes out next week and he's coming out to this song. But I think the song they came out to here, they all came out to it. But I think they came out to it because it's supposed to be Los Garza's song, for those curious. The other thing I forgot to mention, Corey Graves is not on SmackDown. He's actually on NXT duty now. The report from like Meltzer or something was that he's working NXT until like football's over. Like, what does that have to do with anything? I have no idea. But the SmackDown commentary team is Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett. I like them as a duo. I think they're great. So instead of on Raw, they're on SmackDown now. It was Corey Graves, I think, right? And Michael Cole on SmackDown for the last little while Joe Tessitore was on Raw, I believe. And now Corey Graves is on NXT with Vic Joseph and Booker T. Not really sure why, but that's where we are. So we had LA Knight challenging Shinsuke Nakamura for the United States Championship. And I thought they had a good match here. I enjoyed this more than their Survivor Series match. Better crowd. Crowd didn't really sit on their hands. Night's over. You know what we say? I know what Mike has said about, like, oh, his star has fallen and whatnot. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. He's not quite at the same spot that he was a year ago, but that's just because he was in the main events a year ago. He was challenging for world championships a year ago. I get it. I understand. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we could be doing more with this guy. He's feuding with Nakamura, and that's a good spot to be in. He's chasing the United States Championship. But again, I ask you, what are we doing here? Knight wins by DQ because previously he kicked Jacob Fatu out of the building. So obviously, as you would expect, Jacob Fatu comes back into the building, goes after Knight, they attack LA Knight, and they get their revenge, and they cost him the United States Championship before he can win the title. Okay, cool. But what does this mean, though? Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga feuding with LA Knight now? I guess it is something slightly. First of all, he already had a few matches with them weeks ago. We faced Solo Sikoa back in December. They had a 6-man tag team match that Solo's team won. The thing is, we've already seen him working with the Bloodline, not Bloodline, whatever the fuck you want to call them. We've seen this before. Same thing with Cody Rhodes. We don't need this again, bro. I'm sure this is leading to maybe Solo. I'm sure they'll get back on the same page. I think Solo is getting booted from the Bloodline at some point. It may not be next week. They might tease it. I don't know if they do it next week. I guarantee you they are leading to Cody Rhodes, Jimmy Uso, and LA Knight versus Solo, Fatu, and Tama Tonga. And that's why they're going after Knight. But is Knight moving away from the United States championship and now focusing on the Bloodline, the not Bloodline? That's just stupid. Why? What does he gain from that? Nothing. Do we need Jacob Fatu and LA Knight at WrestleMania? No, the match would be fine. I'm not saying it wouldn't be fine, but like, what's the point? That just seems pointless to me. So I don't know. I like the match. The finish was lame. Maybe he still will have the United States Championship in his sights, and they'll get back to Knight and Nakamura soon. But I mean, I would put the belt back on Nakamura. Or back on Knight rather. I like Nakamura. The heel thing is cool, but he doesn't really gain much from being the United States champion. I think it's just, I'm at a point where I just don't really care, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I thought this was good, but this was only the first hour, and we had more shit after that. I think this might have been the top of the second hour, I think is what it was. But anyway, we had the Motor City Machine Guns in action. So we had Los Garza and Pretty Deadly, and then we had the Motor City Machine Guns against A-Town Down Under. Why the fuck these guys are even still a team, I have no idea. Like I said before, but whatever. That's just what it is right now, I suppose. They had a good match. I enjoyed this. It was a very good match, actually. They got plenty of time, but again, they only got plenty of time because it's a 3-hour show. And that's fine. Listen, that's fine. I'd rather they fill that time with more matches and more time. And I mean, not more matches, it's quality over quantity. But quantity as far as, just because the match is 30 minutes doesn't make it great. I mean, just ask the fucking Wrestle Kingdom 19 main event from last week. That was like a 45-minute match. It was a snooze fest. This got a bunch of time, and I liked it. All these guys are good. And I think it is leading to the Guns getting another shot. But I also ask you, they're clearly building to what we already expected we were going to get with the Guns and DIY again, or whatever they're doing there. They got screwed out of a tag team title opportunity last week by Los Garza and Pretty Deadly. So why would they have to work their way back towards another opportunity when they were about to win the belts last week in kayfabe, and then they got screwed? That doesn't make any sense. The Nia Jax thing we'll get back to. I mean, they don't have automatic rematches anymore. I know I've seen people say, oh, why is Nia Jax not getting an automatic rematch, but Rhea Ripley got like 5? Well, that's because Rhea pinned Liv Morgan and Bash in Berlin to get the shot at Bad Blood. And then to get the shot that she got on Monday's Raw, she did that by pinning Liv Morgan at War Games. Use your fucking head. I mean, that's obviously why they did that. I'm on like Liv Morgan Twitter now, not her Twitter profile, but like with the algorithm being the way that it is, I see all this Rhea Ripley hate and all the pro Liv Morgan tweets. And that's fine. I think Liv Morgan had a great year last year. I don't know why I'm getting these tweets on my timeline. It's like, Jesus, I just don't care. I don't know if I can mute the topic or what, but I see all these tweets about like, oh, fuck Rhea Ripley. Why does she get another title shot? We're at that point where she's not quite at Charlotte Flair territory, but she's reached a point where people are starting to get sick of the fact that she's actually booked strong. What a concept. And is over. And she's far more interesting, in my opinion, than Charlotte was. Maybe not now. We haven't seen Charlotte. Not to rag on her. We haven't seen Charlotte in forever. But like people are now shitting on Rhea Ripley, I guess because they're pro Liv Morgan and Rhea ended her run. I don't give a fuck. Get that shit off my timeline. Who cares? But anyway, we'll talk about the women in a couple minutes as far as the next challenger is concerned for Nia Jax, or rather, she was champion for so long. I still think she's champion. As far as the next challenger is concerned for Tiffany Stratton as the WWE Women's Champion. Like I said, we had the Motor City Machine Guns and A-Town Down Under. A good match while it lasted, and they got plenty of time, and the Machine Guns won. So I thought that was a good match, and that was really about it. So what else can you say about it? I think the Machine Guns next week will face Los Garza. They didn't label that as a number one contenders match, but this kind of feels like a mini, we won't call it a number one contenders tournament, but that's basically what it is. And I could see the winner of that match, which will be the Guns, obviously, getting their opportunity at Saturday night's main event. I mean, I would do that match at the Rumble. I'm just so sick of the tag teams not getting more respect on pay-per-view. How many times have we talked about this? We have not gotten a tag team title match for the men on pay-per-view since WrestleMania. What are we doing here? That makes no sense. Do DIY and the Guns at the Royal Rumble or a triple threat with the Profits. I know people have said, oh, what about a WrestleMania? That just feels like it's too far away. That's way too far away. If we're getting this shit now, that's too far away. You can't wait that long. I would do it either at Saturday night's main event, which is not a pay-per-view, which is why I would prefer to see it at the Royal Rumble. Let's see. Richie also said Daniel Bryan said it best. Fickle. Yeah, a lot of fans are fickle. He was not wrong when he made that comment back in 2019. He was ahead of the curve. I mean, fans were fickle even then, but especially now. I'm sure those same fans that are now shitting on Rhea Ripley love the idea of the Rhea and Liv tag team back 3 years ago, and they were super big Rhea fans. But I won't disagree that the storytelling of the feud made no sense as far as why are we cheering for Rhea when she was the one who attacked Liv Morgan in the first place. I do understand that aspect of things, but to completely shit on Rhea and say that she doesn't deserve the championship, I mean, she's one of the most, if not the most over woman in the entire company. So why would she not be champion? That doesn't make any sense. The storytelling I can get, but to completely shit on her just, to me, does not make sense. So we had Tiffany Stratton out next to celebrate her championship win from last week as the new WWE Women's Champion. And I thought this was fine. I thought she did a decent job of explaining that, I said this earlier when I answered Micah's question, but I thought they did a nice job of explaining, I wasn't being bullied by Nia. I was actually using her. I wasn't a sympathetic figure. I actually just manipulated her to be her best friend and get that championship. I knew what I was doing the entire time. Okay, cool. So that to me sounds like she's still a heel. We're going to get heel Tiffany Stratton going forward, and that's fine. But are they just doing that for now, or is that going to be the plan going into WrestleMania? Because again, like I said, I feel like whether you want to believe that there probably is multiple different WrestleMania cards of what we're getting. Different matches they can do. They don't know if The Rock's going to commit yet, so they're not really sure what they're doing at WrestleMania. Okay, I get that. I think regardless of what card they go with of Triple H's for WrestleMania 41, honestly, I do not see another or a better WWE Women's title match they can do at WrestleMania than Tiffany and Charlotte. But if we're going to do that match, at one point I was fine with the idea of heel Tiffany and babyface Charlotte, but I just feel like, I don't know, man. I just feel like heel Charlotte makes more sense. She can come back and do something different, and that's fine, whether it be as a face or a heel. But if she wants to be paired with Andrade, I mean, that's who she's married to in real life, of course. I think she's been pulling for that for a very, very long time. She was probably pulling for that when they were first in the company together 4 or 5 years ago before Andrade left for AEW. I could totally see that. I just think that pairing works better as heels than as baby faces, and Andrade ain't doing shit right now. So I would turn them both heel and feud with Tiffany, man. I don't know if we're getting a Tiffany and Ludwig Kaiser versus Charlotte Flair and Andrade match out of this. It would work better if Ludwig Kaiser was involved, which he's not. But if he was, it would make sense for him to be a heel. But we're not going in that direction, I would imagine. Um, yeah, I just think Tiffany should be the heel. So she came off as a heel here. That might be just because she's facing Bayley next week. So spoiler alert, Bayley came out, wanted the shot of the championship. Nia came out first and called her like a bitch or something or whatever. I think she called her like a piece of shit or whatever. They bleeped it out. It's USA, so no surprise there. But we also had Naomi and Bianca come out. Bianca didn't even say anything. I think Naomi started to say something. Nia Jax called her, insignificant or some shit, and then Bianca got pissed at that, or Naomi got pissed, and they all started brawling. Bianca feels like an afterthought right now. It's weird. She was involved in the impromptu Fatal 4-Way match that we got here to crown a new number one contender. Again, another impromptu match they made official on the show itself instead of announcing in advance because it's a 3-hour show now. So I feel like with all eyes on Raw, all the creative effort is going towards Raw. SmackDown, they just don't care as much about. So I thought the Fatal 4-Way was fun. All four of these women are good, so they had a good, well-worked Fatal 4-Way. Got a ton of time. This was a very long Fatal 4-Way match. But it was Bayley who ended up winning, pinning Naomi, actually. And I still don't consider Naomi the other half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. I mean, I know she's wearing the belt. I don't know if you go to WWE.com, which is usually pretty accurate, not all the time, but usually, it still lists Bianca and Naomi, or rather Bianca and Jade. Now I'm getting it mixed up. They're still listing Bianca and Jade as the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. So Jade, or rather Naomi, comes out with the belt. I don't think she's technically one half of the champions yet. I'm curious when this Jade return is going to happen. I feel like at this point it might happen in the Royal Rumble. If it hasn't happened yet, I feel like the Rumble might make sense. But Bayley ended up pinning Naomi to become the new number one contender. That match is not being saved for the Rumble. It's not even being saved for Saturday night's main event. They're actually doing it next week. So Bayley did say in a subsequent backstage segment to whoever it was, I forgot who she was talking to in the back. I think it might have been Byron Saxton. I think he might be the only SmackDown announcer, but I could be wrong. They might switch people. I don't remember. But Bayley made the comment that Tiffany has never beaten her. So that changes next week. Tiffany will beat Bayley to retain the WWE Women's Championship. So I look forward to the match. They've always had good chemistry. I feel like that match just makes sense. So I look forward to the match. So at least they advertised that for next week, and that won't be an unannounced match, which we've gotten a few of in the last couple of weeks. Richie said in the comments, fans need to spend more time watching than tweeting. I used to be that guy, and it's not fun. I think back to those days and cringe when I used to try and play armchair booker. Like, listen, we all play armchair booker, but sometimes you just got to watch the show. I'm the first one to complain and fucking rant and bitch and whatever and complain about, hey, where is this going? Sometimes you do indeed have to let things play out, but sometimes the way they're playing out, first of all, sucks, or the end game is not really good. It's just like these super obsessed fan bases, for guys too, not just the women, that get like too wrapped up in their feelings because their favorite isn't on TV or being booked the way they want to be booked. He also said Tiffany versus Charlotte is going to be the women's equivalent of Will Ospreay and Ricochet. Those two are going to be doing all types of cartwheels, clips, kip-ups. I'd watch the shit out of that. Yeah, I feel like that's the perfect WrestleMania match. And they have yet to have a one-on-one match. I don't even know if they've interacted. I think there was a picture they took together. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I know they took a picture together about a year or two ago. I saw that surfacing around at some point, but backstage. But I don't know if they've ever actually interacted like on TV. Because Tiffany got called up right after Charlotte got hurt. She got called up to SmackDown last January. Charlotte got hurt in December, the month before. So I don't think they've ever had any interaction on TV. Any meaningful interaction, anyway. Richie said, last night SmackDown felt, dare I say, Vince McMahon-esque. Everything was all over the place, but perhaps they just need to find their stride booking the show for 3 hours. Yeah, I mean, I'll give it more time. We'll revisit this. I mean, I'll talk about it every week when we review the show. But it's something I think worth revisiting in a couple of weeks to see, all right, is SmackDown getting better at 3 hours or getting worse? Yeah, he meant flips. That's what I figured. I don't know why I said, you wrote clips. I should have said flips. I probably should have assumed that's what you meant. He also said, hopefully next week will be better paced. I hope so. I hope so. I thought the show was fun. I mean, it wasn't a bad show. It was just like, okay, that was a show that, this was a show that happened. And we're almost done here, too. I'll let you guys go in a couple minutes. We have one more match to discuss here. That being the main event, Cody Rhodes and Jimmy Uso falling short against Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga in a tag team main event. A good match here. I thought this was fine. They got some time. Fatu and Tonga going over after Cody brawled with Kevin Owens like a bad friend, a bad partner to Jimmy Uso. Left him hanging high and dry. That left Jey Uso to fend all for himself, obviously falling short and getting pinned by Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu, I mean, the sky is blue. Not mean to rhyming there. Not meant to rhyme, but in the sense that he is a natural-born leader. This is the guy that you should be building around, not Solo Sikoa, who I like, but Jacob Fatu is that guy. If Solo Sikoa is not that guy, Jacob Fatu certainly is. And I think next week we might get closer to that with him betraying Solo or planting the seeds for that, and then him being built up as the next big star on this show. That face-off that Jacob had with Cody at the beginning of the show in that opening segment made me feel like, all right, are we getting Cody and Jacob at some point? I just don't see them going in that direction unless they were to do it like Chamber, which they could. It's like, okay, do you really want to sacrifice Jacob Fatu for this match that you know he's not going to win a month out for Mania? Probably not. You can always go back to Cody and Jacob at some point down the road. And I'm not even really sure how you could set that up because I know Jacob's won some tag team matches. He's won many tag team matches, but he hasn't won any singles matches beyond when he beat Jey Uso in that Survivor Series War Games Advantage match right before Survivor Series. Beyond that, I'm not sure he's had any other singles matches on TV. So he would need to earn an opportunity at the title to even get to that point, but I don't think we're getting that anyway. So I thought this was good. It saw Jacob and Tama Tonga standing tall to close the show, as well as Cody brawling with Kevin Owens through a table off a fucking, whatever the fuck that thing was, a table. It was like off the stage. It was very similar. I saw the side-by-side. Kevin Owens and Dean Ambrose did something similar. It might have been to the Rumble, actually, back in 2016. If it wasn't at that show, it was probably one of their other matches they had in late 2015, early 2016. But they kind of repeated that spot. I did see the side-by-side as well with the finish to the Raw main event on Monday. How the finish to Punk and Rollins mirrored the finish of Punk and Moxley from All Out a couple of years ago. I thought that was cool too. Obviously done intentionally. Two Shield guys, that was not on accident. Let's put it that way. But that was SmackDown in a nutshell for January 11th, or rather the 10th. Today's the 11th. Today's actually, I think, the 32nd anniversary of the first ever episode of Raw. Pretty sure. I think it was 32 episodes, 32 episodes, 32 years ago today. We had the first ever episode of Raw on USA Network. But yeah, for January 10th, 2025, that was SmackDown. Overall, like Richie said, I thought it was a decent show. SmackDown last week was better. I just don't really think, and I know they're like the same show, different rosters, just different colors. I get it. But SmackDown to me is not meant to be a 3-hour show. I know it's an experiment, and selfishly, I hope it fails. Because I want SmackDown back in 2 hours. It's just a better show that way. And, I appreciate the fact, because I try to watch and review as many shows as I do. I used to watch and review Rampage and Level Up and shit like that. That stuff got canceled. Level Up is getting replaced by like an Evolve type show run by Gabe Sapolsky. I don't know where it's airing, on Peacock or where. I have no idea. But Level Up got canceled in the meantime. And Rampage is no more as well. So I do appreciate the fact that after SmackDown is over, I don't have to watch these other shows and go to bed at like 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever and review those in addition to other pay-per-views and events like TNA pay-per-views sometimes air on Friday nights. That was not the case here, thankfully. It was only SmackDown I had to watch last night. And it was a fine show, but I feel like it could be better. They need to do a better job of the pacing, advertising more stuff in advance, and just getting a deeper roster. I feel like we're living in Groundhog Day right now. It's probably the best way to put it with SmackDown. We're back to Cody and the Bloodline, or again, whatever you want to call them. We're back to LA Knight and the Bloodline. We're still getting Knight and Nakamura, which is fine. It's a feud, it's a storyline, so I get it. But Chelsea and Michin, why is that still going on? With the tag team title picture, where are we going with that? Where are we going with DIY and the Guns? Is it another match, or like, what's the end game there? Because I'm still invested in that story. I like that they're doing more with the tag team division, getting more teams on TV. I like that. But if they're not winning meaningful matches, then what are we really doing here is the question. And if they're just dragging things out for the sake of dragging things out, I don't like that. So hopefully SmackDown gets better next week. We're only 2 weeks in here, and I'm already not liking the 3-hour format. I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because last week I thought it was good. Last week I liked it. This week I did not. This week it definitely dragged. The 3 hours definitely felt more tedious. They need to improve upon that in the coming weeks and months. They're going to need to. Otherwise, SmackDown is going to be a complete fucking chore to watch and sit through every single Friday night. Last couple things here. Richie said you pulled a Ron Burgundy and just read what it said. Yeah, exactly. I pulled an Anchorman. He also said, side note, Jacob did not say he loved Solo last night, so it's happening. No, I noticed that as well. I forgot to mention that. But as he was walking out to the ring, he did one of those Jacob Fatu walking promos through the backstage area. And he did not say, Solo, I love you, Solo. He did not say that. He didn't even say, I hate you, Solo. He just said nothing. He just focused on his own goal. Like, they can't continue to acknowledge a loser as their tribal chief. They just can't. That just doesn't make sense. So, something to keep an eye on next week. I'm interested to see where they go there. Solo Sikoa back next week. Motor City Machine Guns versus Los Garza in a unofficial number one contenders match for the WWE Tag Team titles. And they're also advertising for next week Tiffany, Stratton, and Bayley for the WWE Women's Championship. So we'll be back here very likely next Saturday, hoping to do as many of these every single Saturday as we can. I'll be at the Rumble in a couple of weeks, so obviously I probably won't do one that weekend, but there's a chance I might. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll wake up on Saturday morning at the hotel and do a SmackDown review live in the hotel room before I head out to the pay-per-view itself. I'm not sure, but keep an eye out for all the upcoming SmackDown streams here on the channel. I hope to go live with the reviews every Saturday around noon Eastern time. And as I've said before, hashtag AskGSM moving from Wednesdays to Tuesdays as of this past week. We went live on Tuesday, had a great time, great stream with you guys, almost an hour and a half. I can't promise it's going to be that same length every single week. But we will be back on Tuesday. You could send in more questions in the chat if you could join us live. If you send in a question ahead of time, I will definitely answer it on the show. But if you join in live and send in a question to the chat, I could try to answer it during the show. So episode 571, 81, whatever the fucking number we're up to now, of hashtag AskGSM, that's coming up on Tuesday. And then next Thursday on WrestleRant Radio, breaking down all the other news and notes from the world of wrestling right here on the channel. So like I said, all the streams usually go up around noon, before noon, afternoons. I mean, the one on Thursday this past week was early Thursday morning, just more conducive to Mr. Marceau's schedule. So we'll figure it out. Appreciate you guys sending in Super Chat, Micah. I appreciate you guys, everyone in the chat, Richie as well. He said, see you in the next one, brother. I appreciate you, Richie. Have a great weekend. Have an awesome one, guys. Hopefully we can continue to improve these, do these every single week with the SmackDown reviews and hashtag AskGSM and WrestleRant Radio, and making more of an ongoing thing here on the channel to do more live streams. So, and I'll try to figure out more of the mic issues as we discussed earlier and see what we can do. But until next time, guys, have an awesome one. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.